It's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and it's episode 373. It's Friday, the 29th of March, 2024, as it a deluge of rain here in Rhode Island. We've got AI Dreams, Exchange, Darcula, NuGet, Rockwell, FTX, Aaran Leyland, and more stories on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Eclipsium in partnership with CRA. We've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests, including Zeno Kova, Richard Hughes, Vincent Zimmer, and more. We discuss topics related to firmware and supply chain security, uncovering those pesky vulnerabilities that lie, well, below the surface in your environments. You can find all the episodes and subscribe by visiting eclipsium.com/podcast or searching for Below the Surface in your favorite podcast catcher.
All right, I'm Doug White, and it's the Security Weekly News. We're live. Well, almost live, actually. I mean, I'm live right now, but I mean, you're sort of seeing a recording. But, you know, who am I? Erwin Schrodinger? It's the Security Weekly News from the island of Elba. All right. So this week, the German National Cybersecurity Authority issued a warning that they had found at least 17,000 Microsoft Exchange servers in Germany, just there, that were exposed online and vulnerable to critical security vulnerabilities. Imagine that. The agency said that around 45,000 Exchange servers in Germany have Outlook web access. That's the OA mail server thing. And they said that 45,000 people have that enabled and are exposed to the internet. 12% of those, are about 5,400, were using outdated versions of Exchange like 2010 or 2013, which have had no security updates in a long time. I mean, 2010 has not been updated since 2020. In 2013, end of life last year. Of the 2016 and 2019 servers that were exposed, they said about 28% of them had not been patched for at least 4 months and are vulnerable to at least one critical security flaw, exploitable in remote code execution attacks. They said that at least 37% of Exchange servers in Germany are severely vulnerable, representing about 17,000 systems. And they said these were particularly apparent at schools, colleges, clinics, doctors' offices, nursing services, medical institutions, lawyers and tax consultants, local governments, and medium-sized companies, which is to say almost everyone. The BSI, which is what it's called, or the Bundesamt für Sicherheit in der Informationstechnik, urged admins to always use current Exchange version, install all the available security updates, and configure instances that are exposed online securely. Sound advice. To me, that's common sense, but we all know how that goes. Shadow had warned back in our Shadow server had warned back in February that 28,500 Exchange servers were vulnerable to one particular CVE, and that the BSI findings were indeed accurate based on their information. Extended protection, which is a feature that you could turn on, but is not on by default, will be toggled on automatically if you install the February 2024 cumulative update, which would allow Microsoft to push out patches to these devices automatically, unless, of course, you're running like Exchange 2010, in which case, well, you might want to upgrade. But look, you need to patch these things. They're facing the outside, they're 24/7. People are targeting them, people are looking for them, and if you are running these unpatched vulnerable servers, you're gonna get got. I mean, it's just bottom line. A new phishing as a service provider named Darcula, and boy, is that hard to say. I mean, every time I see it, and I want to say Dracula, but it's actually Darcula. I even looked it up to make sure it wasn't a typo, but Darcula uses about 20,000 different domains to spoof brands and steal credentials from mobile device users around the world. Now, Darcula has over 200 templates to choose from in their showroom. And if you order today, we'll throw in this set of adamantine steak knives, which will cut all the way through the table, or even that brisket that Lou and I put in the smoker that time, then had a bunch of drinks and kind of forgot about it. And finally, about 4 o'clock in the morning, we went out there to check on it, and it turned into a charcoal briquette. So we had to order a pizza. But, oh well, that's what all night pizza places are about. Anyway, Darcula is remarkable in that it approaches targets using the RCS protocol for Google Messages and iMessage for iPhone instead of using SMS. And of course, that's not a huge shock at this point in time because so many people are blocking, filtering, managing, evaluating SMS messages, but these others maybe not. So Darcula was first documented. Darcula was first documented last summer by Oshri Kalfan, and the platform has recently become very popular in the cybercrime space and was used in several high-profile attacks, according to Netcraft. Now, Darcula uses tech like JavaScript, React, Docker, and Harbor to support their product on the fly. And they actually have a really sophisticated support and updating mechanism using these tools as a way to constantly keep it changing. So I guess that helps it not be detected, but it also means it's very current. Like maybe other companies should look at how they're doing this to make sure their stuff, like say Exchange Server, is current. But basically, Darcula says they want to ensure that their users and subscribers have the best and most current version in their phishing kits because, when you're committing crimes, you want the best and most current. Now, how much would you pay? Well, Netcraft said they had mapped 20,000 Darcula domains across 11,000 separate IP addresses, which sounds a little strange. I'm like, so are they sharing the domains on the IPs? You'd think there'd be more IPs than domains, but okay. And they said 120 new domains are being added daily to their farm of domains. Now, due to bans and controls around SMS messaging, new techniques, were required. Most of the attacks in this case are these kind of messages you get where it asks you to reply Y or one sometimes. And then once you have replied, it wants you to reopen the message. So they're basically getting around, you're now engaging with this message, which opens you up to an attack. Now, you really should think about reminding your people that they probably shouldn't click any links in texts. And probably it's best if you don't send them texts saying, click this link to find out more. Like I saw happening not too long ago where they were like, this is a safety alert. Please click this link to find out more. I'm like, are you kidding me? But, make sure you know who you're clicking links from. And if your company is issuing links for people to click, it's probably just not a good idea. And of course, there's always going to be new vectors coming up in this space because that's just how it works. NuGet is a popular open source .NET package repository that's controlled by Microsoft, and a recent upload to it was called SQZR Framework 480 or Squeezer Framework 480, and it was found by Reversing Labs after it was flagged in one of their routine threat hunts. It was uploaded by a user called Zhao Yushun, 1999, on the 24th of January, and it actually is a .NET library that has a range of functions related to ICS, industrial control systems, and in particular GUI management, machine vision library configuration, and robotic movement calibration. So this is obviously something people may well want to be using. It's geared toward developers working with equipment from a company called Bozhon, Bozhon, Precision Industry Technology. Bozon is a Chinese company that manufactures equipment in the areas of smart warehousing, read robots, smart logistics, semiconductors, electric vehicles, and consumer electronics. So between those categories, you've covered just about everything. Bozon lists Microsoft, Samsung, Bosch, LG, and Logitech as customers. They have a whole bunch of other ones too. But basically what this is there's an init method embedded in the Squeezer Framework 480, which basically has a looping series of actions that runs every 60 seconds. Essentially what it does is every 60 seconds, it opens a socket to a remote IP, takes a screenshot of the system's primary screen that it's running on, and then sends the screenshot to the remote IP. Now, Reversing Labs said this could conceivably be something legitimate for various functions like sending camera images to a remote workstation, which was what I immediately thought, right? It's like those little snapshot programs that we used to use on web. I used to have a camera on Mr. Cat who used to sleep on my desk under a heat lamp because his life was so hard. And in the early days of the internet, me and this other guy that I used to work with a lot, we set up a snapshot upload every like 30 seconds of Mr. Cat. We changed the name to something that I won't say because it would be rather offensive and got like 1 million hits in 2 days. You can guess what it was called, but anyway, this thing could be legitimate, but basically they went on to say that because of the nature of it, it's hidden in shell code. It seems to be designed to be obfuscated. That it seems kind of suspicious. So, Reversing Labs confirmed that the package appeared to have been removed on Thursday, but nobody could get a comment from Microsoft or anyone else about this. But by Thursday, which was yesterday, the package had been downloaded more than 2,400 times. So, if you are using this, you may want to seriously consider either, if you're going to keep using it, blocking its outbound connectivity, which you should be doing anyway, or at least investigating why it's doing that and if you want to take that risk. So if it's uploading screenshots of your screen, that sounds pretty fishy to me. I wouldn't want my current screen being uploaded to some Chinese server somewhere, but that's just me. An Apple ID spear phishing campaign is using push bombing and caller ID spoofing to target some tech professionals over the last couple of weeks. Parth Patel, who is a startup industrialist or whatever you want to call those people, a startup specialist, posted over the weekend that he and other startup founders, oh, there's what we would call it, startup founders, in his circle, I don't know what that means, had been targeted by this attack. Now, if you don't recall, push bombing is when you get a large number of password reset requests real quickly. So you get all these little pop-ups on your screen on your phone or whatever, and it basically says password reset, and every time you click it, more of them pop up. And you have to essentially fight your way through it and click don't, do not, disallow, whatever the button says on every single one of them. And some of the push bombing attacks in the past have involved you getting frustrated and trying to go really quickly, and they shift things around on the screen, and eventually you hit one that says allow by accident, and then poof, you've got a big problem. And it's really tough to prevent this from going on because it's considered a system level alert. Now, Patel said he received more than 100 of these notifications very quickly, and shortly after he cleared them all, a phone call pops up with a spoofed ID that, I mean, obviously he didn't know it was spoofed at the time, but an ID that says it's an Apple phone support request. Yeah. And they basically asked that he relay a one time password request sent to his phone. Patel said the caller had accurate personal information about him, including his date of birth, his current address, but that they had his first name wrong. So, obviously lots of red flags going off here if you're thinking about it. Patel said that the information was potentially acquired from a people search site called People Data Labs, where they had pieced this together using joins, I guess. Obviously, if you click the wrong thing or you give up the information, they're probably going to be able to get control of your iPhone accounts, and particularly they may get your backups. You could lose control of your iCloud account and access to your device, or they could just wipe your device for you remotely. Now, another target in this same case said that notices on their Apple Watch appeared to have been designed to ensure that you would have to scroll to even see the don't allow button. So they're obviously starting to explore this again, how they can get you to click and so forth. Stopping the attacks is quite difficult, but obviously, if you get these kind of attacks, don't allow it. Be careful what you click on and screen all your calls very carefully. I mean, when I see these kind of calls, and they're getting very, clever with this kind of stuff where the calls pop up with certain names and so forth. So you might want to issue a reminder to all your people about this kind of stuff going on, because it's been a while since I've seen a story about push bombing, but there used to be quite a few of them, and it seems to have slowed down a little bit lately. Rockwell Automation recently posted 3 new security advisories that cover 10 different issues, and this was followed up by a Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, advisory on the 26th. So that means federal agencies are subject to this, I think. But the vulnerabilities are in PowerFlex Fit 527, Arena Simulation, and Factory TalkView ME platforms that Rockwell produces. Michael Heinzel was credited with reporting all these flaws. There are 3 high-severity bugs in PowerFlex, 5 high-severity arbitrary code execution bugs in Arena, and a medium-severity cross-site scripting issue in Factory TalkView ME. So if you're managing ICS, remember, security through obscurity is not security, just obscurity. So secure your obscurity to provide surety. Yeah, I even got through that. How about that? But I mean, at the end of the day, make sure your ICS stuff is not being exposed to the public, that it's not on the internet, that if you have people using your ICS controls via the internet, that they're using VPNs, that they're being authenticated, that you have a lot of controls around this, because that old thing about security through obscurity in ICS is not true. And it just means that you're kidding yourself. So don't do that. Yeah. So this one let me do a little bit of reading because I had not seen the term before that came up. According to Lanyado at Lasso Security, several large companies have published source code recently that incorporates a software package previously hallucinated by generative AI. Okay, I'm going to admit I had not seen this term before. I actually knew what it was once I read about it, but when I saw hallucinated by generative AI, I went, "What the hell is that?" I just hadn't heard the term quite that way before. I mean, I got it immediately when I started reading it, but it's basically, if you don't know what this means, it's when an AI creates something, it's been requested, and that something is got embedded in it, either wrong or made up or other incorrect information in the process of doing something else. It's called an AI hallucination. Now, all the hallucinations I had involved a guy named Bert who was always trying to sell me a basket of cats that were all named Ricardo, but I needed to give him 4 Canadian dollars and a bottle of Green Spot whiskey, and I didn't have any of that stuff on hand. It was very confusing hallucination, but I told Lou, you got to stop mixing, this kind of stuff. I think he was putting Quaaludes in brandy or something like that, but who knows? It was very confusing. Anywho, the example they provided was that Alibaba, which is a massive Chinese tech company, has a PIP command or pip command. I usually say PIP, but a lot of people say pip, so whichever you want it to be. But basically, the pip command installs something called Hugging Face CLI in their graph translator install instructions. Hugging Face CLI. Now, Hugging Face is not real, and it was hallucinated originally by an AI. And it was turned real, it turned into a real boy by Lanyado as an experiment because Lanyado said he kept seeing Hugging Face CLI in hallucinations that were coming up from generative AI. So he made it real. Now, here's the way this works. If you still don't quite understand it, I was still trying to think of an analogy at that point. I realized I do this all the time. You ask the AI to write you something. It writes you a piece of code, it writes you whatever, and it doesn't necessarily have placeholders for everything in what it's writing. So it hallucinates some modules. And you're supposed to, of course, correct these to be the right modules and whatnot. And you take note of them and then you implement it, blah, blah, blah. So basically what this is if somebody could figure out that the AI is consistently using the same thing, then that dependency could be made real as he did, and the dependency is going to get pulled into this software. And of course, once that dependency is made real, it could contain just about anything and be poisoned by malware. Now, the article has a lot of details here, but they said that GPT 3-5 produced hallucinations about 22.2% of the time when it was writing code, and that 13.6 of those were repetitions. Doesn't shock me a bit, just like real coders, when you put placeholders in your code, you tend to use the same stuff over and over again. I've looked at code before and said, oh, I know who wrote this. In Gemini, 64.5% of the questions produced invented names, with 14% of them being repeated over and over again. Now, to me, I guess ultimately where I got to with this analogy was if you ask a programmer for an example of a function. So I have students ask me for stuff like this sometimes, and I write them just like an AI might do that now. And if you're a programmer and you use the same kind of variable names over and over again when you don't know what the real variable name should be or the real file name should be, and you just call it foo.bar or whatever, it's made up. But you probably do the same kind of stuff all the time, like using, say, the word out file or something like that. So it's common. It gets embedded in code. This gets embedded in the supply chain. And well, guess what happens next? This could be an evil plot. It could just be somebody taking advantage of it, or it could just be AI. But it's a very interesting story if you're interested in this kind of stuff. Probably a good thing to talk about on Paul's Security Weekly as well. Well, the latest thing in identity theft is stealing images of people by scraping, which doesn't sound like a latest thing to me. They've been doing that for years. But basically, after they scrape these images, guess what? They're now using those images to create content online. The images are then used to sell everything from potato peelers to erectile dysfunction pills. Or hey, if you ever wanted to see yourself in an ad for, how you got syphilis, and how to cure it, yeah, that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it's just the next wave of deep fakes. And since, you can get all the tools from HeyGen or 11 Labs or wherever, and those will allow you to synthesize a voice if you have enough content, then they can basically create a deep fake of celebrities or influencers hucking a product. Now, lately, Taylor Swift, Kelly Clarkson, Tom Hanks, and Mr. Beast have all had their images used to sell various things, including deceptive diet supplements. Are there any other kind? I mean, all that holistic stuff is almost always deceptive. I mean, but who doesn't trust Tom Hanks to tell you, to buy a dental plan? Um, iPhone giveaways, you name it. Taylor Swift is telling you there's an iPhone giveaway, so it must be true. But here's the catch. Celebrities have a lot of attorneys and a lot of money, so they've been fighting back on this. But so the hucksters are shifting gears. They're going for everybody else because the celebrities will fight them. So they've been going after lesser known podcasters and bloggers and influencers and all these kind of people. And I mean, it's kind of easy to laugh about, but if you want to think about it more seriously, think of it, because I immediately was like laughing, and I'd written a couple of jokes for the show about, like, maybe they'll get around to us one day. But when I really think about it, it's really bad. Think about something you really, really don't like. I don't want to get into politics or anything, but think about something or someone you really hate, and then finding out that someone scraped your face off those blog posts you made back about Minecraft when you were like 16 years old or something, and that you're online endorsing and hawking that very thing. A 20-year-old UPenn student found that she had been cloned for around 5,000 different videos, and she was a Ukrainian, I guess. I don't know if she was a Ukrainian national or she was a Ukrainian, American or whatever. But she found out that across about 5,000 videos she was being used, and in all the videos, I think she was speaking Mandarin, which she said, I don't speak Mandarin, but she was basically praising Russia and saying how Russia was the best country in the world, praising President Putin for being such a stand-up guy, and so on and so forth, and was not very happy about it being Ukrainian. This was all on Little Red Book, which is a reference to Chairman Mao, of course, who wrote the Little Red Book originally. But Little Red Book currently is Chinese Instagram, essentially. I mean, I think we probably need some laws for this. And I know the laws won't stop it from going on, but it would be nice to have a mechanism for complaint, because primarily what the story was about was an American influencer, and she was trying to fight this and having no luck at all, because basically nobody can do anything if it's not actually a crime. We really need some privacy laws in the United States, folks. Really. I mean, not that it would totally help, but we could spend our time, talking about banning TikTok, right? Or we could focus on actual privacy issues, but you know how that'll go. Well, I was dreaming when I wrote this, so sue me if I go too fast, but life is just a party, and parties weren't meant to last unless they're parties with Aaran Leyland. Hi there, Aaron. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Dog. You caught me post party today, so I'm not as chicken as normal.
Let me tell you.
I'm sure you guys singing Irish songs.
Every time I've ever seen you post party, you were fine. And when I was half dead, I mean, I remember that morning in Vegas when you were like, "Can you open the table? I'll be there in a little bit." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe." And I had gone to bed the night before. You were like coming over from Frankie's or something, and like you came in and you were all cheery and perky, and I was like, I feel old.
It's okay.
I need an IV bag with magnesium and Ringer's lactate.
When I'm in my hotel room on my own, I look like hell. It's just good makeup, lighting, and good angles. Okay, today's professional commentary inspired by the great people over at the Hacker News. Link in show notes as always. US charges 7 Chinese nationals in major 14-year cyber espionage operation. Go you lot. It's like, right. So the recent indictment by the US Department of Justice against 7 Chinese nationals marks a significant milestone in the complex arena of global cybersecurity and espionage. Oh, what fun. It's like my favorite place to be. These individuals are accused of participating in a protracted 14-year cyber espionage campaign, allegedly acting on behalf of the Chinese government, where allegedly being the funniest word in the whole of this in this story. Okay, this operation purportedly orchestrated by hacking group known as APT-31 targeted a diverse range of entities, including US and foreign critics, journalists, businesses, and political figures, reflecting a concerted effort to further China's economic espionage and foreign intelligence agendas, which are massive. And it just makes me wonder why we treat China as such a dear friend. Sure, China, come on over, have a Bud Light with us, make yourself comfortable. But anyway, to some, the breadth and depth of this operation are both fascinating and alarming. To me, it's just steady state China things, to be honest. APT-31's activities, characterized by sophisticated malware deployment, meticulous attack infrastructure management, and precise surveillance operations, underscore the evolving landscape of state sponsored cyber threats. The group's association with the Wuhan Science and Technology Company, and yeah, Wuhan, you heard Wuhan, and for some reason it only gives me images of bats, but I don't know where that image come from. Very strange. So, Wuhan Science and Tech, a front allegedly, there's that word again, used to mask the Ministry of State Security cyber operations, illustrates the lengths which nations may go to disguise their digital espionage endeavors. China just doing China, to be honest. They don't talk about the biggest illegal wealth transfer in history for nothing, and obviously nothing at all to do with them having a famous lookalike fast jet and all them other cool toys that yeah, I'm not sure they are indeed, to be honest. Anyway, state sponsored cyber espionage, such as that attributed to APT 31, represents a significant challenge to global digital security. The operation's duration and sophistication highlight the persistent and evolving nature of cyber threats from state actors. Techniques employed by APT 31, here's the list, including spear phishing, exploitation of zero day vulnerabilities, and the use of custom malware like Rodor and Troculus Rat, demonstrate the advanced capabilities of these actors. Their success in compromising devices and exfiltrating sensitive information underscores the critical need for robust cybersecurity measures and continuous vigilance. For me, I always say this, they are already inside if you're important enough, and you should be thinking about kicking them out. You have been warned again and again and again. Go do that. Utilization of a front company for conducting these operations reveals the complex strategies states may employ to conceal their cyber espionage activities. This adds a layer of difficulty in attributing cyber attacks to specific actors, further complicated by the use of proxies and the inherent anonymity provided by the internet. I always ask myself, is attribution really possible? If someone goes to the greatest length to obfuscate, well, I'll let you answer that question yourself. So, the international reaction to the unsealing of these indictments, including sanctions and rewards for information leading to the apprehension of those involved with APT 31, probably have to go to China to get them, to be honest, signifies a collective stance against malicious cyber activities. It also emphasizes the necessity of global cooperation in addressing cyber threats that transcend national boundaries. And as we know, cooperation is always something we can be doing better. So China's categorical denial of these accusations and the portrayal of charges as completely fabricated highlights the geopolitical complexities surrounding cybersecurity. This situation underscores the challenge of achieving a consensus on acceptable state behavior. It's all that gray area they talk about doesn't meet the threshold that dropping a bomb on them or kinetic activity. So, acceptable state behavior in cyberspace and the difficulties in establishing accountability for cyber operations. And of course, they would say this: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea all beating the same deny, deny, deny drum. So, from this episode, several key lessons emerge from the cybersecurity community. Firstly, ever changing threat landscape demands a proactive and adaptive security posture capable of identifying and neutralizing threats before they inflict harm. Secondly, the importance of international collaboration in cybersecurity cannot be overstated. Effective combat against cyber threats requires a unified effort from the global community to share intelligence, enhance defensive capabilities, and ensure accountability for malicious actors. Lastly, the case of APT 31 serves as a stark reminder of the continuous cyber espionage campaigns aimed at intellectual property theft, political surveillance, the acquisition of sensitive information. So this all necessitates the adoption of a zero trust security model. Go do that. Ongoing monitoring of digital environments and comprehensive cybersecurity education for all stakeholders. Good luck. Okay, the ramifications of such state sponsored cyber activities extend beyond the immediate targets of espionage. They pose a threat to the foundational principles of international trust, economic competitiveness, and national security. As cyber espionage becomes an increasingly prevalent tool in global geopolitical strategies, the potential for escalating tensions between nations grow. Moreover, the economic implications of such espionage activities are profound. The theft of intellectual property and the sensitive business information can significantly undermine the competitive advantage of targeted companies, leading to substantial financial losses and potentially a loss of jobs and innovation. So, yeah, pretty bad. So, in conclusion, the indictment of the 7 Chinese nationals for their alleged roles in the comprehensive cyber espionage operation highlights the critical and complex nature of cybersecurity in the modern world. Oh, yes, it does. It serves as a clarion call to the cybersecurity community and international policymakers to bolster defenses, foster global cooperation, and engage in meaningful discussions about establishing and maintaining a secure and stable digital environment. Learn some lessons, get it done. Oh, yes, we must. It must, I tell you. Okay, back to Dr. Doug in the studio, who, if you ask him nicely, will prove to you, show you all his authentic accents of all the places I named today. Peace art party, people.
I used to have a decent accent in the Middle Kingdom only, though. That was the only
I
one I
like
could
your
do.
Russian
But
accent, but I don't know if we should do it.
oh yeah, well that's another whole matter.
Thank you.
Kill moose and squirrel. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you.
Aaron. And finally, well, Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Now, for comparison purposes, Ross Ulbricht, who created Silk Road, was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences for building the Silk Road website. Just for reference purposes. Now, if you don't know, you probably do, but Sam Bankman-Fried is the founder and ex CEO of FTK Crypto, which was this massive, crypto thing. Basically, let's just call it a scam. And had asked his attorneys had asked the judge in the case for 5 to 6 years in prison because of all the great works and charity and commitment to others. They literally said that. Now, Judge Kaplan in the Southern District of New York, which is one of the largest federal districts in the country, was not amused, although wasn't that unamused either. Kaplan ordered forfeiture of 11 billion US dollars, which would be used to compensate the victims, but said they could not order restitution. And so the difference in those two things is that compensation means they establish a fund where an administrator decides what you get. Restitution means if you invested $1 million, you would get $1 million back. So, basically you got a ticket, you want a refund. Sorry, maybe they can get you some used office furniture or something instead. I mean, it would be very difficult, of course, to do restitution in this case because there was a lot of complications with it. If you want to get involved in that, feel free to read all the case documents and so forth. But Bankman-Fried said that everyone. Now, this was a statement that Sam Bankman-Fried released that said everyone will be paid in full. But that's not really possible. When you've got $1 million that you're supposed to be managing and you spend, like 90% of it on parties or donating it to charity, whatever you did with it, you're probably not going to be able to refund all that money. Since that Bankman-Fried and some others there basically embezzled all the money. I mean it's not about like we didn't invest wisely. It's like they literally just embezzled the money. They stole it. So yeah, I mean they didn't cut me in on it either. So but Judge Kaplan said that he had found FTX customers had lost around $8 billion. The equity investors, which are the stockholders, lost about 1.7 billion, and the lenders to the firm lost 1.3 billion, which adds up to 11 billion. Now, Bankman-Fried could have received 110 years in prison, but the U.S. prosecutors asked for 100 years. But you know what? Somebody decided he didn't need that. And so, Bankman-Fried's charitable giving, it was all a scam. They were donating money to universities and political parties on all sides, but it was all money that was being stolen right out of the company. So it's kind of a tough sell that you were such a great person and you were doing all these good things, even though you were doing bad things to do good things or whatever. I mean, I'm sorry if you lost in money here. I feel, that sucks. And I would be really frustrated if I had lost my money as well. But hopefully you'll get something back from it. It's unfortunate. I think that Mr. Bankman-Fried is going to basically get a really dinky sentence. They said he could be out in as little as 12 years with good behavior. So we all know how this stuff works, right? Now, if he'd gotten caught with like one marijuana cigarette in certain states, he would have probably got at least half that sentence. So it's but if you're rich, it's the way it works. Anyway, that's the news. Thanks, Aaron, and we will see you next week on the Security Weekly